Jackson Reed's life? It flowed with the smooth rhythm of a jazz vinyl on a Sunday morning. At 32, he had everything perfectly dialed in. His downtown Los Angeles loft, bathed in that clean, California sunlight, was a sanctuary of order and quiet success. As an eco-architect, his designs didn't just win awards, they hummed with harmony, reflecting the very balance he so carefully cultivated in his own existence. He never bragged about the accolades. True contentment, he believed, needed no external validation. His friends, watching his chill demeanor, called him grounded. His parents, witnessing his steady climb, called him lucky. Jackson, in the quiet space of his own mind, just called it peace. Every single dawn was the same ritual, the rhythmic thud of his feet on the same beach trail, the salty tang of the Pacific air waking up his lungs. Then, the familiar chime of the tiny cafe door, where the barista, with a knowing nod, would already be prepping his usual, half oat, half almond, 2 shots, no sugar. Life was a perfectly tuned instrument, each day a precise, comforting measure in a melody on repeat. And yeah, he figured that's exactly how it should be. But then, something unthinkable happened. Without warning, without a single off-key note to hint at the coming chaos, everything shifted. On a day that had started just like all the others, the carefully constructed harmony of his world began to unravel. It was a golden September afternoon, one of those LA days where the sky unfurled above like a freshly painted canvas, a shade of blue too vivid, too impossibly pure to be real. He'd wrapped up an early meeting, leaving him with a rare window of unplanned time. Instinctively, he drove up to Griffith Observatory, his go-to spot for perspective. Here, the vast horizon stretched wide, an endless promise, while the sprawling city below just buzzed, distant and silent, like a dream seen through a shimmering veil. The sheer scale of it all always calmed him, putting his perfectly ordered life into soothing proportion. He leaned against the cool railing, sipping his coffee, the warmth radiating through his fingers, his thoughts drifting across the hazy urban sprawl. And then, a sudden, jarring, vivid flash of crimson. It seared through the corner of his eye, an audacious splash of color against the serene blue, tearing the fabric of his peaceful contemplation. His head snapped around. She was there, standing maybe 20 feet away, yet her presence seemed to fill the entire space. A young woman, ethereal in a flowing floral dress, but it was her scarf, a scarf of bright, almost audacious crimson, that seized his gaze, fluttering wildly in the gentle breeze like a captured flame, a living ember. Her eyes, vast and deep, scanned the sprawling skyline, their gaze peaceful, yet strangely far away, as if beholding not just the city, but horizons beyond Jackson's comprehension. But Jackson wasn't looking at the view anymore. His world had narrowed, focused entirely on her. Something within him stirred. No, not stirred. Something woke up. It wasn't the fleeting pull of desire, or just curiosity. This was something far, far older, like a forgotten name, a sacred vow, being whispered back into the deepest chambers of his soul. A recognition so profound it bypassed intellect entirely, thrumming in his very essence. He tried to look away. He failed. The crimson scarf, her ancient eyes, held him captive. Her head tilted, almost imperceptibly. Their eyes met. The moment stretched, elongated, distorting the very fabric of time. A sudden, profound silence descended, not just an absence of sound, but a complete halt of all ambient noise, as if the world itself had muted its breath. And Jackson felt it, a peculiar, inexplicable ache blossoming in his chest. A visceral tightening, as if the very air around them had thickened, turned heavy, palpable. As if time itself had paused to breathe, holding its collective breath in the face of this silent, monumental encounter. He hesitated. Jackson Reed, the man of meticulous order, the architect of controlled environments, was never the type to just walk up to strangers, let alone one radiating such an arresting, almost otherworldly beauty. He was grounded, predictable. But something in his bones, deeper than logic, stronger than habit, pushed him forward. His heart raced, not with the frantic flutter of nerves, but with a different kind of urgency, a pounding resonance that felt unsettlingly like memory. As if he'd stood on this precipice, felt this exact pull, met her 100 times before, in 1,000 forgotten sunrises. He approached slowly. Every step was a battle between his ingrained caution and an irresistible, primal urge. Unsure, scared, his voice caught in his throat, Then, by some unknown grace, it steadied, pushing past the sudden lump. "Hey, beautiful view, isn't it?" The words felt clumsy, inadequate, yet they were all he could manage in the face of such a profound internal upheaval. She turned fully to him, her movements fluid, unhurried, like a dancer's. And then, she smiled gently. A soft, knowing curve of her lips that carried no hint of surprise, only a quiet acceptance. "It is." Her accent, when she spoke, was soft, melodic, unmistakably Indian, a gentle current in the otherwise still air. Her eyes, they held something deeper than just politeness. Something ancient, a wisdom that seemed to stretch back through countless ages, unburdened by the fleeting concerns of the present. "I'm Jackson," he managed, extending a hand, his palm strangely warm. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, her gaze unwavering, as if weighing the very fabric of time before responding. Then, with a slow, deliberate grace, she shook his hand. Her touch was light, yet Jackson felt a distinct, almost electric jolt pass through him, a resonance that sang deep within his bones. "Anaya," she replied, and just like that, a name etched itself onto his soul. Not just a label, but a profound, indelible mark, as if it had always belonged there, waiting to be revealed. They spoke for a while. The initial awkwardness dissolved into a curious ease. She spoke of her travels, the vibrant chaos of Mumbai, the unexpected calm of the Californian coast. They found common ground in conversations about the intricate flavors of international cuisine, the bewildering yet energetic pulse of LA. She told him she was on vacation from India, a quick 2-week trip before heading home. A classical dancer, she explained, dedicated to studying the ancient, intricate temple forms that carried centuries of spiritual history. Jackson listened, his conscious mind absorbing the details, but his real focus lay elsewhere. It was fixated on the strange, pervasive sense of familiarity that radiated from her, like a subtle, elusive perfume he couldn't quite place, yet recognized with every fiber of his being. It was the scent of home, of belonging, in a place he had never consciously known. After she left, a profound quiet settled over Jackson. He stayed at the edge of the railing for a long, long time, the city lights beginning to glitter below like scattered jewels. His heart, still racing with an unfamiliar intensity, pulsed a confusing rhythm. His mind spun, trying to process the encounter. He'd met women before, many women, attractive, intelligent, engaging, but never like this. Never like recognition. This wasn't just an attraction. It was an echo from a place beyond memory, a whisper from a forgotten past. That night, the first dream came. It wasn't just a dream, it was an intrusion. The air around him was choked with the acrid scent of flames. Not a distant glow, but an inferno, its angry orange and red tendrils licking at ancient stone. The ground beneath him vibrated with the thunderous rhythm of horses galloping through a stone-paved courtyard, their hooves striking sparks, their eyes wide with terror. The air was thick, heavy, with the cloying sweetness of incense, yet underneath it, an ominous, metallic tang of something burning, something vital. Distant shouting, guttural and desperate, echoed around him, a cacophony of fear and urgency in a language he didn't understand, yet, astonishingly, felt as natural as breath, as ingrained as his own heartbeat. A single name, both foreign and profoundly familiar, hammered within him, echoing relentlessly in the chaos: Devraj. And through the swirling smoke and desperate cries, a woman's voice, piercing and filled with an unbearable anguish, cried out, calling for him, her voice tearing at his very soul. He woke up in a cold sweat, his heart thundering against his ribs, a frantic drum against the silence of his loft. The name Devraj clung to his mind like glue, an unshakable phantom. He had no idea where it came from, no memory of ever hearing it before. But it haunted him, a chilling premonition of something irrevocably lost. Over the next week, the visions grew stronger and stranger. They bled into his waking hours, fragmenting his carefully constructed reality. He'd walk through the bustling aisles of a farmer's market, the scent of fresh produce filling the air, and a sudden, blinding flash would hit him. He wasn't in LA anymore. He was in an ancient temple, watching a priest, his face serene and timeless, marking his forehead with vivid, red vermilion, the touch cool and spiritual. He'd reach out to touch an old copper bowl in an antique shop, the metal cool beneath his fingers, and suddenly, violently, he was there. In a different temple, the air heavy with devotion, the scent of jasmine and marigolds thick in his nostrils as he, himself, offered fresh flowers to a silent, ancient statue, his heart brimming with an inexplicable reverence. Faces of strangers, passing him on the street, would morph, for a fleeting, terrifying moment, into people he knew. Knew intimately, knew tragically. Their eyes held stories, their expressions etched with a history he couldn't grasp, yet felt deep in his marrow. And every single time he met Anaya again, this bizarre, unsettling phenomenon intensified. Her presence seemed to act as a catalyst, an accelerant, making the fabric between his present reality and these ancient visions dangerously thin. Their time together began to expand, coffee dates blossoming into long, languid walks on Santa Monica Pier, the crashing waves a rhythmic backdrop to their deepening connection. She spoke of Indian mythology, her voice a soothing cadence as she narrated tales of gods and goddesses, heroes and sages. She spoke of her love for sacred dance, describing movements that transcended mere choreography, becoming prayers in motion. She spoke of temples that didn't just stand, but vibrated with centuries of history, imbued with the echoes of countless devotions. Jackson listened, utterly captivated, but his absorption was deeper than simple understanding. Each story Anaya shared didn't feel like new information, it felt like a remembering, a dusty key slowly turning in a forgotten lock deep within his own consciousness. He wasn't learning these myths, he was recognizing them, sensing their truth, their power, their profound connection to something buried inside him. He couldn't explain it to her. Not yet. How could he articulate the feeling of another lifetime pressing in on his carefully ordered existence? The words seemed utterly inadequate. One evening, walking by the ocean, the moonlight a shimmering silver path on the waves, Jackson finally, tentatively, broke the unspoken tension. He stared out at the vast, dark expanse and said, his voice barely a whisper, "Do you ever feel like you've lived before?" Anaya's smile, always gentle, faded slightly. Her gaze drifted out to the distant horizon, a hint of something unreadable in their depths. She didn't answer him with words. But her silence, profound and resonant, said more than any verbal affirmation could. It spoke volumes of a shared knowing, a silent understanding that transcended explanation. That night, the dream returned with vengeance. It was no longer a fragmented vision but a terrifying, cohesive narrative. He saw himself, no longer Jackson Reed, but someone else, someone ancient. Barefoot, the cool stone beneath his soles, dressed in simple, ancient robes, a heavy, familiar sword strapped to his side. He stood before a towering, magnificent temple, but it was consumed by a raging inferno, the flames devouring sacred wood, sending plumes of black smoke into a night sky that echoed with the screams of the damned. From deep within the heart of the conflagration, a woman's voice, sharp with terror and desperation, shrieked his name, piercing the roar of the fire. And he ran, a futile, desperate sprint towards the impossible, but it was already too late. The heat scorched his skin, the smoke choked his lungs, and the horrifying realization slammed into him. He was powerless. When he woke, his body was convulsing, his hands shaking uncontrollably, trembling with an echo of a past, futile struggle. He stared at his palms, flexing his fingers, as if expecting to see bloodstains, the evidence of a loss so profound it still resonated across centuries. He couldn't take it anymore. The carefully constructed piece of his life had shattered, replaced by a haunting, undeniable truth. He found Anaya. With raw desperation, his voice trembling, he confessed everything to her, his terrifying dreams, the relentless echo of the name Devraj, the disorienting waking visions, the profound, unexplainable emotion that pulsed between them whenever she was near. Instead of laughter, instead of disbelief, she offered stillness. Her gaze was calm, accepting, a quiet harbor in his storm of confusion. She listened, her ancient eyes holding his, understanding shining within their depths. And then, with a gentle, patient voice that seemed to carry the weight of ages, she told him of the soul. Of Punarjanma, rebirth, the endless cycle of existence. Of karmic memory, the indelible imprints left by deeds and emotions across countless lives. And of ties that span lifetimes, connections woven so deeply that they defy death and time itself. And then, she told him something that chilled him to his very core, yet resonated with an undeniable truth. "You've described a temple from my hometown in India," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Exactly. The ancient steps leading up to it. The unique archways. Even the name Devraj, it's not just a name. It's known in our legends, a figure of profound significance, intertwined with the temple's history. The pieces, disparate and terrifying, suddenly clicked into place. The overwhelming sense of recognition, the dreams of a burning past, the resonant name, it was all real. This wasn't some psychological break, it was a destiny unfolding. That night, Jackson made a decision. It wasn't the kind of decision you think through, weighing pros and cons, planning meticulously. It was the kind you feel. Deep in your gut, in your bones, a profound, undeniable pull. Like a sacred calling echoing from across the vast expanse of time. He booked a one-way ticket to India. A journey not just across continents, but across lifetimes. He lived a perfectly ordered life, until a flash of crimson ignited a forgotten past. What if your soul remembered a love that died centuries ago? Episode 1 ends here. If you were hooked by Jackson and Anaya's unfolding journey, make sure you don't miss what happens next. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel right now, so you're ready for the concluding episode.